it's Jessie G here. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to today's episode of Jessie's Hangout. This is episode number 4. If you are new to my channel, hi, I'm Jessie G. This is an open topic podcast series that I record and post on my main channel. If you wish to check out any episodes 9 through 28 are on this channel, and on the channel that I used to post it on was my old second channel. You could go view episodes 1 through 8 through there, and also you can view the first 3 episodes of season 2, which is season 2 right now, if I forgot to say that. I hope you guys will enjoy those episodes, but before we get into today's episode, I'm going to put a trigger sensitive warning and an age warning into today's episode, and also a copyright disclaimer, so I hope you guys will bear with me until the show starts. Even though you guys seen it before the show starts, I want to be able to put it in there, so that way if any of you missed it, you guys can hear it again, and let's get into it. Copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as comment, criticism, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by the copyright statute that might otherwise be interfering. Non-profit or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Age restriction warning. This episode is for mature audience only. Viewer discretion is advised. If you are under the age of 18, this episode may not be for you. Highly recommend parents' permission and that they watch this episode with you if you choose to listen or watch this episode at your own discretion. Trigger or sensitive warning. If you are triggered or sensitive to any of these topics that are going to be talked about in this episode, do not listen to this episode. If you choose to listen to this episode at your own discretion, I highly recommend you listen to this episode with someone. I didn't put this in there, but such as your emotional support system, your significant other, a best friend, somebody that's willing enough to sit down with you and listen to today's episode with you. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Today's episode is all about the 1790s to the 1840s, modern time, lesbian, Gentleman Jack, and you all know her as Anne Minster. There's a series out now that's called Gentleman Jack. She's portrayed by Suran Jones. She portrays Anne Minster in the episode. She's a really good actress. I admire her work. She really brought Anne Minster to life, in my opinion. And then there's Sophia, who is the actress who brought Anne Walker to life. I think it's really interesting. These two really pull it off. They have a on-screen chemistry. They really work well together. I think it's pretty awesome. Some people found the series hard to get into. Maybe it's because they didn't fully understand it, which that's okay. Sometimes that happens. Some people get into it, some people don't. But I like it. If you're interested in watching it, you can always go to your HBO On Demand if you have Dish TV, or if you have the HBO Max app, you can find it there. You can always wait to record the second season, which is probably coming out sometime next year, I would imagine. I'm pretty sure it already came out in the UK. The US sees it after the UK, of course. It always happens that way with BBC One drama series. That's kind of how it was with Downton Abbey. If any of my viewers are familiar with Downton Abbey, I did a review on that. I think it was in my first season, I did a review on that. I did a review on it on my second channel, but I took it down. Don't ask. But yeah, I did a review on that, so you guys should go check it out. I think it's in season 1. I'm not sure exactly what episode it was. I'll put the episode in the comments if I find it and remember it. You guys should go check it out. You should check the series out. It is streaming on Peacock, and it's also streaming on Netflix. Okie dokie. Ann Leinster was born April the 3rd, 1791 in Halifax, which was West Yorkshire. It was said that she was born somewhere else, which was in, what was the name of it? I don't remember what it was. It was in here, but it was said that she was born somewhere else. The house that she owned, it said that she was born there, but she wasn't. She was born in Halifax, west of Yorkshire, a place west of Yorkshire, so to speak, if you're familiar with it. Anne had a bit of a colorful life. The best way I could describe Anne, from what I gather and from what I read through all of this, just a little tidbit that might help you as I go through all this. Sorry, allergies. Anne Lister was a bit of, I wouldn't necessarily say she was a rebel, but she definitely was not afraid to be herself. She was a bit of a, she was hard to handle from what her mother said. Her mother was really young, too. She married her father really young. She was 18 when she got married to Anne's father, who was like 36, I think he was. And she had Anne and her 4 brothers and her sister, so there were 6 of them. Anne was so hard to handle that at the age of 7, she was sent to a school in Ripon. It was a dame school. It was a dame school for, it was a dame school, boarding school for girls, I would assume. And that is when she met her first love, her first woman lover, was Eliza Rison. She was one of the first lovers that Anne had throughout her boarding school years. And it was also said during that time, because she was such a madcap, as the person that was doing the article on, she put it that way. She was a bit of a, what we would call a heathen, so to speak. But because of that, her father ended up having to come fetch her from boarding school, and I'm assuming she continued her education in Halifax, I would imagine. It was said that sometime in the summer, Eliza came to stay with Anne for the summer, and then when Eliza left, that's pretty much when the relationship ended, and that was when Anne started her journal. And it was said that Anne's journal was 6,600 pages long and over 2 million words. During that time, being a lesbian, being in a man's world, was unheard of for a woman. It was being a lesbian of the 1790s or 17th century. It was swept under the rug a lot. It was even illegal for a woman to have any sexual contact with a woman, whether it was consent or not consent, in a way. So there was definitely a lot of factors that played into it. I did my research with a little bit of it, and from what I gather from Downton, it was definitely very rough being who you were. It was swept under the rug because society viewed people like that differently. They still do it to this day, but back then it was taboo. it was something that you wouldn't talk about. Just like mental health, crimes and things that you hear about now, they wouldn't talk about it then. Society wouldn't talk about a lot of things that we don't find taboo anymore. That's what they would find it. And that was one of the many things that Anne had to face. Not, her sexuality, the fact that she was you'll hear about this too, the fact that she became an heiress, the fact that she was I want to say a jack of all trades. She was a scholar, a scholist or something, if that's what that is. She was also a traveler, an architect. She was always into architect. She was also into some certain genre of arts as well. So she was kind of a jack of all trades, so to speak. And very well educated and very remarkable woman, to say the least, too. It was also said during that time she moved to Halifax, Yorkshire. She moved into Sheedham Hall, which was the name of the house that people thought she was born in, but that's not what she was born in. She was born in Halifax. She came to Yorkton Hall, which was a town. She was well known in that town. She made her stamp in it. Let's just put it that way. She moved in with her bachelor uncle and her spinster aunt and her brothers and her sisters. A little bit of background into this. The reason why Anne became the heiress of Sheridan Hall was not only because her uncle passed in 1826, but because of the fact that during that time, a lot of children didn't always make it past birth or past 7 or 8 years of age. And if they did, they always died in their 20s or 30s. So it was very, very hard to have children back in those days. They died from a lot of diseases, a lot of viruses, and a lot of complications with the birth, all that sort of thing. So sadly, all of Anne's brothers passed, and it was just her and her sister. But given the fact that Anne was older than her sister, everything passed to Anne. So Anne became an heiress, but she became the owner of the estate. So that's how she became that. And that's how she became even more involved and more into being an heiress when her uncle passed too. It was also said that Anne continued her education in Paris before she moved in with her aunt and uncle. She continued her studies in Paris. Paris life was a bit difficult for her. Not just the educational area, it was just the people she encountered, the women she encountered, being used by them and all that type of stuff. It was very difficult for Anne. I would say she had standards. She always wanted a woman with a good title and money. That was what she was looking for back then. It might be different nowadays, but back then that's how it was. And eventually returned to Sheridan Hall, and eventually took over the whole state, and eventually worked with her workers. She always liked the manual labor. It made her feel good to do things like that. In her words, it made her feel manly, manly, if I could spit it out. It made her feel like she had a purpose, so to speak, if that makes sense. But also, I'm going to touch a little bit on that. It was also unheard of for a woman to be an heiress as well. not so much a lesbian because it was always swept under the rug, but to be an English heiress and a woman, it was definitely unheard of. And living in a man's world, she had to endure a lot of criticism, a lot of people who didn't like her. She had to deal with a lot, and over that time, um, even know that she was a traveler, she was a scholarette and a scholar, if I'm saying it right. Yeah, a scholarette and a scholar, um, and was well educated. But she also, like I said, she also liked to travel and be an architect and all that. Anne was a very ambitious woman. Um, During that time, sometime in the 1830s, she met Anne Walker. Anne Walker was born. Anne Walker was born May the 20th, 1803. She was about, from what I gathered, she was pretty much about roughly around 12 years younger than Anne Minster was. Anne Walker was really beguiled, and Anne Minster, she kind of fell really hard for it. But at first, when she did, she really didn't understand her feelings. She wrestled with it a lot. And it didn't help that Anne Walker lost her parents at a young age. She went through a lot. And on top of that, Anne Walker had a lot of mental health disorders, illnesses, and it was just very difficult. Some say it was due to the fact that she wrestled with her religion, and that's what made her have to make the choice that she made, whether to marry a man or stay with Anne, and she chose Anne. And of course, they got married. And it was also said that when Anne Walker went to live with Anne, I'm not sure if it was actually her family in particular, or if it was Anne Walker's family. Anne Walker's family was kind of against. I think they were against it, and I think Anne's family was against it because of the fact that Anne was the way that she was. She was talked about a lot. Anne Walker was talked about a lot by society because of the fact that she had a relationship with Anne. And it also didn't help that during that time, I think a little bit before she met Anne Walker, when Anne went into business with the coal business, she had a rivalry. It was Christopher. It was Christopher something. I wish I could remember his last name. I had it written down. I just, for the life of me. Oh, it's Christopher Howson. His family was well known in the village. A lot of his siblings married into the villagers that were there, and they had wives there, so it was easy for them to talk about the Lannisters a lot. Even Anne's uncle let Christopher mine coal off of his land and make money off of it. So Anne got the idea around the time, I think it was around the time she was courting Anne Walker, I'm not really sure. But she was mining coal, and he played a lot of dirty tricks and did a lot of things to disrupt what Anne was doing. Anne endured a lot from a rebel, but it was also said they thought that because of all this, that somewhere in secret he admired her for it, for being who she was and being as strong as the woman she was. And Anne was known for also wearing black and top hats and, that type of thing. She wasn't the whole, I'm going to wear white or pastel colors or bright colors. She really wasn't into that sort of thing. Also in the show, she did wear blue, but it was like a really dark blue, but mainly she wore black. There was a time in the episode where it was mentioned where she had to wear white from head to toe. at a ball that she kind of really made her stamp on. It was a bit crazy. It was a bit comical at the same time. Um, but anyway, it was also when back to Ann Walker here. When Ann Walker tried to move in with Anne, it was said because of Ann Leinster's history and because of who she was and how she was talked about in the village or in the town or village or however you call it. They were afraid of her moving in because of how people would talk about her, how she would be preceded in society, and and like I said, it didn't help that Ann Walker had a lot of had a mental disorder and dealt with some illnesses at the same time. So like if, for instance, if there was a bow wrong, she would cry or just kind of have a fit about it. But being Ann Leinster, being married to her for 6 years, I'm assuming Anne found some sort of a way to deal with it. Because I know that some people say that Anne married Ann Walker for money so she can do her coal business and do some architectural stuff with with the house that she inherited as an heiress. She made a lot of changes because she saw a lot of homes around that time that had different things, so she was doing it to her house. At one point she wanted to call it Castle Sheridan Hall, and Fred said that's a little too grand, but that's how she viewed it. But I think also Anne married Ann Walker because she loved her, and she could deal with things that a man probably couldn't deal with. She could deal with it. And I think Anne saw past that. And that was just the kind of woman she was, in my opinion. And when they moved in together, she was making some architectural adjustments, and they decided to. She got ambitious about making it to a certain place, but it's now called. I think it's Israel or something. It was named something, but I don't know what it is now. I think it's Palestine. I don't know what it was called, but it was someplace in Europe, and she really wanted to travel there. So she had to go through a lot of places to get there, including a mount something, and she had to go through all of that. But the town that she was in, around the 1840s, it was known for a lot of diseases there. There was a lot of problems, especially coming from a tick. And like we would know now, like if you went to any swampy areas, you would have to deal with Lyme disease or any other diseases spread by a wasp, or not wasp, a mosquito. Jeez, Anna, or jeez, Jessie, I'm getting my games mixed up. I need to get my words straight. But anyways, she got bit by a tick. And she ended up with a really bad fever, and she spent 6 weeks. I would say probably agony, and I'm pretty sure she felt absolutely miserable. And she wrote in her diary 6 weeks before her death. That was the last entry. And when she died, she passed on. Ann Walker passed on September the 22nd, 1840. Ann Walker had her body moved back. She had her body, wouldn't necessarily say shipped, but she had her body brought back to Halifax, which was West Yorkshire. It was a little place there that became something else, I think. She was buried on April the 29th, 1841, because it took a long time for where she was at to get where she lived at in her hometown. So she was buried in her hometown, and then I want to say about 15 or so years later, Ann Walker passed away at the age of 50 on February the 25th, uh, 1554. Um, she died of some brain complications, I want to say it. Um, when Ann Linster died, that was when the health of Ann Walker and her mental health went on a downward spiral. And it caused her to seek treatment uh, with a special doctor that gave her treatment until she passed. She was able to go home and spend out the rest of her life until she passed in her 50s. Passed at the age of 50. Um, it was very, I wouldn't necessarily say agonizing, but it must have been very difficult to go through all that for all those years and to deal with the illnesses and the mental health disorders that she had and anything else that she was going through. It had to have been really hard. And and having to struggle with it back in the 1800s and that sort of thing being swept under a rug probably didn't help either. But anyways, it was very tragic end to both of their lives, but I think what makes them so memorable was not so much the fact that they were married for 6 years. It was so much the fact that Anne was well educated. She was a jack of all trades, if that makes any sense. She was a scholar, and she was an architectural. She was a businesswoman, and she was also one of many lesbians of her time. She was well known in her village. She wasn't afraid to be who she was. She just kind of was herself. And her diaries that were written in code basically told the story of her life and her travels and the encounters she had with many women, her sexual encounters with women, why she had so many encounters. Anne was I didn't mention this, but Anne was really interested or very curious at the time before she met Ann Walker. She wanted to know what it was that made women fall for men or fall for her. So she was interested in that by trade, but I think she kind of met her match with Ann Walker. I think Ann Walker kind of got to her in a lot of ways, even though some people think that she married to use her for her money, but I think it was a lot more than that, but that's just me. But anyway, still to this day, there's probably other historians and other people trying to still decipher Anne's journal, the fact that it was written in code and all that, and it's a lot of pages too. So it's very interesting to know about this remarkable, very extraordinarily gifted woman who lived her life in secret and did what she did. And it's very interesting to watch it unfold in a series. It was very interesting to watch it unfold when I was watching documentary and all that type of stuff on her. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I hope you guys took a lot out of today's episode. If you haven't already, hit that red subscribe button and that notification bell so you'll be notified as to when I upload further episodes in the future. Also, don't forget to go check out all of my social medias. They're in the description box below this episode. I hope you guys have an awesome day or night, and I will catch you guys in my next episode later.